Man, I really hope you guys can see me, but welcome to Breion's Diary, where we talk about life. We are healing, growing, and building our confidence and self-esteem. So, welcome to our fourth video for this series, Life Lessons 3.0, where we're focusing on self-awareness. It's a lot of noise out today because I'm in the park, so just go ahead and please excuse it. Alright, getting in today's video, I am going to have a vulnerable moment with you guys. I just keep getting laid off from my jobs, and for the most, I've been trying to stay positive about it, but I also have these moments where I'm in my head thinking that, what happened to me last year is going to happen to me again, as far as, me having to move back home. So I've been taking walks in the park to clear my mind, and I ended up talking to a friend one day, and he told me that basically that I'm human, and so we're going to have feelings, and it's okay to feel. But as I was talking to him and listening to him, I started to feel much lighter. You guys know we are in the self-awareness series, and I became self-aware in having a conversation with him that I was trying to control the outcomes of my life. And we talked about this plenty of times before, but I was so focused on outcomes that I was agreeing with the negative thoughts about my past in my head. When I was talking to my therapist, I ended up having a therapy session the next day, and when I was talking to her, she made me aware that those thoughts were actually my fears, and I was coming into agreement with those fears. So she asked, how can I come out of agreement with those fears and come into agreement with faith? And I automatically thought about that song. It's by Todd Galbraith, and it's Fear is Not My Future. It's like Fear is Not My Future. So what I was doing was allowing fear to dictate my future. Through Bible study with another friend, we were reading the book of Exodus, because we're doing a Bible study devotional book that we're doing. And the writing prompt talked about, in order to make olive oil, you have to crush the olives. So we tied it back into, sometimes we have to go through a season of crushing so that we can become the oil. And the prompt asks to reflect back on a time that, I was being crushed, and how did I handle it. So I thought back to, I always talk about the last 3 years of my life. I was going through a crushing period. It was isolation, it was purging, it was learning a lot of lessons, and it was a humbling experience for me. It was self-discovery. And how did I handle it? By running to God. So I say that to say, a lot of times when things are going bad in our life, or we are going through that crushing season, we are so close to God. And the only way I was able to come out of that crushing or come out on the other side of depression, anxiety, and hurt and trauma was through getting to know God and building my relationship with God. So I told myself that I have to run back. I have to run back to God at this point. So even though I'm receiving blessings and in a much better space, that does not mean that I can let up on my relationship with God. Because one of my biggest lessons, and sometimes I have to become self-aware, is that I cannot do life without God. So one day I decided to take a bath and have a little me and God time. I was talking to God, basically casting my cares to Him and apologizing. Also, but I asked God for a scripture, and when I asked Him for a scripture, He gave me Joshua 6:3. And when I read it, it basically talked about the Israelites marching around the city. So I looked up the meaning, and guys, all Joshua 6:3 basically was saying, when I looked up the meaning of it, was saying that trust God, trust His guidance, and know that all the victories come from Him. God gets the glory and everything. So when they were marching around the city, they were preparing for war or whatever, they didn't need to really do much because God had it handled. So it's really just letting go of that control. God got the victory at the end of the day. So after reading that, I knew God was leading me to just trust the instructions, His direction, and His guidance. That there is no need to worry because He always got the victory. So with that being said, if you are trying to be in control of outcomes of your life, save yourself the stress, the anxiety, and the worry, and do the things that you are in control of, and trust God, and trust in God and telling him how you feel, and stop trying to do God's job by trying to figure everything out and doing that on your own. You're not going to be able to do that. So I ask myself, why am I trying to figure out something that God has already figured out? If I spend time with him, as is emphasized in Joshua 6:3, just be obedient in what God tells you to do, and you'll know what he's telling you to do by simply spending time with him. Sometimes that instruction is just to rest. Rest because you may not get a lot of rest in your next assignment that God has for you, and you wish that you taking that time of rest that God gave you when he was giving it to you, instead of worrying. So you only can do what you can. In my case, that's posting and marketing for my business. That's applying for jobs, and just doing the things that I can do and have fun doing it too. And until God is ready to move me into my next season or the next phase of my journey. But until then, doubt, worry, and fear, it is doing absolutely nothing for me. And for sure, one of God's instructions is to not fear. And he said to only think of things that are lovely, noble, and good. So where my focus goes, energy flows. We talked about that before. Blessings are all around me, and I will see those blessings as long as I focus on what God tells me to focus on. So, with that being said, remember, healing isn't linear. It is a journey. And here at Breion's Diary, we are healing together. Stop trying to control your life and stop trying to do God's job. Literally, everything you feel, whatever you worried about or you stressed about, give it to God and trust that God got it worked out. And you know how they say faith without works is dead? You only can do what you can. And once you do that, you just give the rest of it to God. And that's what truly trusting God is, and not trying to do his job. Stop trying to control the outcomes. Let it go and let the energy flow. Love you guys. I'll see you next week. Bye. Mwah.